Hello, this is Mr. Stansbury. I'm going to take you through the notes on parallelograms. At the end of this, you should be able to say I can develop properties of parallelograms. So first things first, what's a parallelogram? It is a quadrilateral where both sets of opposite sides are parallel. So these opposite sides are parallel and these opposite sides are parallel. That's what a parallelogram is. Parallelogram is often denoted, instead of writing parallelogram, just draw this little thing that looks like a parallelogram, little symbol. Okay? So, specific properties. Opposite sides of parallelograms are congruent. So these two sides are congruent, and then those two sides are congruent. Okay. We also know that opposite angles are going to be congruent. So these two are congruent, and these two are congruent to each other. Okay. Diagonals. We draw the two diagonals between the two opposite corners here. Will actually bisect each other. So this segment here, it's going to be congruent to this segment here, and then this segment here is congruent to this segment here. Okay, and then one more thing is that any two consecutive angles are supplementary. So these two are supplementary, these two are supplementary, these two are supplementary, and these two are supplementary. Okay, so let's put that to some practice here in an example. All right, so given parallelogram LUCK, find the following. So we've got triangle KCL. Okay, so K to C to L. I'm just going to put a little dot in here because that's the kind of the middle of this order here. Is congruent to which triangle? So U is obviously the beginning part up here. And this angle has to be congruent to this angle here. So it's going to have to go ULC. Okay, so those are the two congruent triangles. Remember, the order of the letters matters, because if you said UCL, then you're saying that KC is the same thing as UC, and we know that those two things are not going to be the same. Okay. Anyway, moving on to B, find X if angle K is 6x plus 3, so angle K is 6x plus 3, and angle KCU, this whole angle here, is 10x minus 15. 10x minus 15. So we remember from the thing that we just talked about is that any two consecutive angles are always supplementary. So we know that 6x plus 3 and 10x minus 15 have to equal 180 degrees. Okay, so let's simplify this. 6x and 10x. 16x, 3 and negative 15 is negative 12x equals 180. Oops, not 12x, but just negative 12, right? Okay, so let's add 12 to both sides. So we get 16x equals 192. Divide both of those by 16, and let's see what we get here. So let's do 192 divided by 16. And we get that x is going to be 12. So it says find x if blah, 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 blah. So x is 12 on this one here. Okay. Last one for this example here is C. Find A and B. They tell us that KL, let's do this in a different color here so a little easier. KL is 2A plus 5. So K to L is 2A plus 5. LU is 7. UC is 14, and KC down here is 5B plus 18. Okay, so we're going to find A and B. So here's our only A that they give us. Since this is a parallelogram, we know that these opposite sides have to be congruent. So we're just going to do set 2A plus 5 equal to 14, because we know that these two sides have to equal the same. Subtract 5 from both sides. 2A equals 9. Divide both sides by 2, and we get that A is 4.5. Okay, and we can do the same thing to find B. We know that KC has to be congruent to LU, so we would say 5B plus 18 has to equal 7. Okay, so let's subtract 18 from both sides, and we get 5B equals negative 11. Divide both sides by 5, and we get B is negative, what's that going to be, 2.2. Okay? Okay, we're going to look at one more set of a couple of examples here, but before that, let's do a little comedy break.
Who's coming up with serving sizes? The serving size of ice cream is a half a cup. What is that? Is that like a joke some guy put on there? Hey, come here. Look what I put for the serving size. I just did it as a joke, but they're going out like that. I don't know what to do. Just let it go. I guess there's nothing you can do now. You ever know anybody to eat a half a cup of ice cream? Hey, you want to go grab something to eat? Oh, no. I had a half a cup of ice cream. Yeah, a whole half a cup. I just kept eating and eating and eating. I must have had 2 spoonfuls. I think a serving size of ice cream is when you hear the spoon hit the bottom of the container. Right? When you can't do this anymore. I can rip the side. Not sure what they're talking about for that half a cup of ice cream.
Okay, last example. AC and DB are diagonals of parallelogram ABCD. Find each measure. So since they're diagonals of a parallelogram, we know that they bisect each other. So we know that this AE, is the same as AC. And then we also know that DE is the same measure as EB. Okay, so then that means we know that 2y has to equal y plus 5, and now we solve both sides. Well, we solve for y here, so we get y equals 5. So then 2 times y, that's going to make this length here 10, and 5 plus 5 makes this length here also 10, right? And then we also know that 3x minus 13 has to equal x plus 1. Right, so then we solve this one. So we subtract x from both sides. 2x minus 13 is 1. Add 13 to both sides. 2x is 14. Divide both sides by 2, and we get that x is 7. So since x is 7, 7 plus 1 gives us that this length here is 8. And 3 times 7 is 21. Minus 13 is also 8. Okay, so then now we can fill in all of our blanks over here. AE we figured out is 10. EC is also 10. DE is 8. And EB is also 8. All right. Make sense of problems. One of the floor tiles that Mr. Cortez sells is shaped like a parallelogram. Find each measure of the floor tile. So if it's a parallelogram, we know that these opposite sides are equal and opposite angles are equal, and also consecutive angles have to equal 180, so they're supplementary. Okay, so let's maybe figure out the supplementary first. Doesn't matter which one you do, but so we know that b plus 15 and 2b has to be supplementary, which we know is 180 degrees. So now we just solve that. So we get 3b plus 15 is 180. Subtract 15 from both sides. 3b is going to be 165, right? So we're going to divide both sides by 3 here. So we get 165 divided by 3 gives us 55. So we divide both those by 3 and we get b is 55. So that means 55 plus 15, 55, 65. This is going to be 70 degrees right here. And then 2 times 55 is 110 degrees right there. And 70 plus 110 equals 180. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. And then we also know that 4a plus 10 has to equal 6a, because these two sides, opposite sides of a parallelogram, are congruent. Subtract 4a from both sides, and we get 10 equals 2a. Divide both sides by 2, and we get that a is 5. So in this case, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 10 gives us that this is 30, and then guess what? 6 times 5 is also 30. So now we have all of our angle measures. Well, we have these two angle measures and these two side measures. Let's see what we need to figure out. Measure of angle W. So this one right here. Probably quickest way to do this is opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent. So if this is 110, W has to be 110. Measure of angle X we figured out was 70. Measure of angle Y was 110. Measure of angle Z is opposite of that is 70, so this is going to also be 70. And then WZ is 30, and XY is also 30. Okay? All right, that's all we have for the parallelograms notes. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks.